All right, so we're going to go ahead and take a look at the steps that we would use to solve for a trigonometric function to find the value of a missing angle. Now, what you notice here is this time our angle, which would normally be labeled with a set number of degrees, has a variable, the variable being a, right? So we're going to use the same 7 steps, step 1 all the way down through step 7, to set up an equation for us to be able to solve with the goal of getting to step 8 to solve a trigonometric equation. Okay, what you're going to notice is that steps 1 through 8 so far are entirely the same for us to be able to solve a trigonometric equation with a missing side as they're going to be for us to solve a trigonometric equation with a missing angle. Okay, so I'm going to come through here and I'm going to go through my steps. Step 1, I'm going to circle the angle that I'm working with. Remember that we do have a right angle, but we never use that right angle, correct? So that's not going to be a focus angle for us. And the other angle over here is completely blank with no variables, numbers, or symbols whatsoever. So we know that it's not going to be either of those angles, which leaves us here at angle A, right? That's going to be our angle of focus. So step 1 is complete. Give it a little check mark. Step 2, label the sides of the triangle based upon that angle. So I'm going to come through here and I'm going to label the sides as hypotenuse, HYP, because it is across from the right angle. The opposite side, the side being on the other side of the shape from our angle of focus, not touching its vertex. And then the adjacent side, ADJ, being the angle, the side connecting the angle of focus to the right angle. So now that we've completed step 2, labeling out our sides, let's go to step 3. We're trying to find what pieces of information do we need to find. All right, and if you look in the parentheses, look for variables. That's your hint, right? The only variable that we have here is within our angle A. That's what's missing. That's what we're trying to find in this problem. We're trying to find the value of A, the variable. So what piece of information are we trying to find? We're trying to find an angle. We're trying to find an angle. So we know what's missing. Step 4, now we're going to look for what pieces of information we have, right? The pieces of information that we have are going to have numerical values. So look for numbers, right? We know the value of the opposite side, 8, and we know the value of the hypotenuse, 17. So what piece of information are you given? We'll just put OPP for opposite and HYP for hypotenuse. Step 4 is complete. Step 5, let's take those values and variables, anything that we know, and put it into our box here, right? You see we have a table and it says sides and values, and those values can also include variables. So let's look first at the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse has the value of 17. The opposite side has a value of 8. Check out the adjacent side. When I look here at the adjacent side, it is completely blank. We don't know anything about it, so we're going to leave that box empty. And then the bottom box, an angle. We know something about one of our angles, and that it is the variable A. So I'll put the letter A here. So check out step 5. Step 5 is complete. We've listed out the information we know. We know the value of the hypotenuse and opposite, and we know the angle is a variable. Again, adjacent, completely blank for us. Step 6 is to choose the correct trigonometric function. Now, in order to do that, we need SOHCAHTOA. And what SOHCAHTOA is going to do for us is help us to know exactly which function to use. S stands for sine, C stands for cosine, T stands for tangent. O's are opposite sides, H's are hypotenuse, and A's are adjacent. But what I want to draw your attention to is step 5. Step 5, we don't have any information for the adjacent side. So we cannot pick a trigonometric function that uses the adjacent side. So cosine uses the adjacent, and so does tangent. Now, because they both use the adjacent value and we don't have that, we cannot use them. So the trigonometric function we're going to use is sine, okay? And that takes us to step 7. Step 7, let me write out the trigonometric function for sine. It is sine of theta is equal to the opposite side over the hypotenuse, and we'll abbreviate those. Opposite over hypotenuse. Now let's input the values that we know into this function so that we can get ready for step 8 here. So we know sine of theta. Remember that theta is an angle. And for our purposes, the angle is a variable, a. So I'm going to write that as sine of a is equal to the opposite value, which is 8, over the hypotenuse value, which is 17. So here is our trigonometric function that we have that we're going to get ready to solve, right? It is, oh, let's not do that. Let's back it out and use this one. Sine of A is equal to 8 over 17. That right there completes step 7 and gets you now ready for step 8. And step 8 is all about how do we solve a trigonometric equation, which is different when you have a missing angle. So we're going to pause here and we're going to practice steps 1 through 7 for how do we set up our trigonometric equation. And in the future, we will practice step 8, where we talk about trigonometric inverses to solve for missing angles.